Looking for the latest comic book to add to your collection? How about the last card for that Magic the Gathering Commander deck? Well, the comic book store's got you covered. Shop online at comicbookstore.tcgplayerpro.com or come in person at 30 North Main Street, Glassboro, New Jersey. Pizza people, welcome back. We've got a pretty interesting video for you today. A lot of the time we do talk about spoilers and we talk about, other sets, things like that. But specifically today we're going to talk about a new set, but it's one that a lot of you may or may not be interested in, which is kind of interesting at the same time. But it is one that is quite fun and is causing quite a bit of conversation on the old MTG Twitter, if you will. I'm joined today by HamHocks42. HamHocks, how you doing today, homie?
Hey, doing well, man. How about you?
I'm doing great, just chilling. I kind of was scrolling around the internet today and saw a card that I actually didn't know if it was real or not because of how much, proxies, the
Sure.
Robo Rosewater
Oh, for
is
sure.
like one of
All
my
all the goofy
favorites.
stuff out in the universe right now. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I saw particularly a specific card that we're actually going to talk about in a second. But essentially, Unfinity is what we're talking about today. It is the MTG's Unset. Um, Another Unset. There's been quite a few. I can't even. What was the last one called? Unstable.
Um.
There we go.
Yeah. Unstable, I think, was the last
Unstable.
full set. They did do Unsanctioned, which was its own little box product, if I'm
Yeah,
not
it was like
mistaken.
a board
But
game with
yeah, it was. Yeah,
some
it was like
magic
a
elements.
self-contained thing, which was
Hmm.
for actually everything I heard about it was actually that it was really fun, but I never played it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks fun, and it comes with like
Mhm.
those sweet textless lands too, or whatever the ones that
Oh
we
yeah.
got on Arena.
Yeah, that's kind of become tradition with unsets, and I think part of the reason for that, if I may be a little cynical, I think part of the reason is that when Wizards produces these unsets, they're so in the past they've been silver bordered, but they've been like separated. They've been their own separate entity. So like, okay, we have all the jokes and they're over here. If you want to have some fun, goofy stuff where like the art matters and the flavor text matters, like stuff we will never do in major tournament legal Magic, we can do all that over here. Dexterity tests and you like have different rules depending on whether or not the sun has set or whether what depending on what kind of clothes you're wearing. Like stuff can get weird in the unsets, and that's part of the appeal, right? That's like, let's just get goofy, let's just have a good time regardless. And if you're into that kind of thing, cool. Like unsets are a great place for you. If you're not and you're focused on the competitive aspect, you can just not worry about it and let those casual nerds go have fun.
Grab your
Meanwhile, I'm over
lands
there.
and leave.
Exactly. Grab those
I'll
sweet
grab my lands and
Texas
leave.
lands and get out of
Yeah.
there. And that's ultimately the reason that I think the Texas lands have become kind of a staple in the unsets, is it gives everyone who plays Magic in any way something to draw them to the set. You know, and whether you're going to buy the booster packs or not, you're at least going to pick up some of those sweet mountains or the sweet islands from that set for your modern deck that you want to bling out. That kind of thing. So it's a neat addition, and it helps kind of make them more appealing. Um, but Wizards is taking a different kind of approach with this one.
Yeah, I think like it's interesting because we talked a little bit about this off screen,
Mhm.
but it reminded me a little bit more of like MetaZoo, where like what unsets really attract are people who players who don't necessarily want to just play Magic, right? Which in reality, a lot of us that are grinding the ladder and going to tournaments in real life, this and that, we actually make up a very small percentage of what the player base consists of. So,
Mhm.
this set technically, quote unquote, could appeal to quite a good amount of players, considering that they're making another one.
Right.
And you're right. I think that the complexity and some of these really cool elements, a lot of like weird stuff we're going to talk about here in a moment, like a lot of that weird stuff is what people want to come on like a day of limited, right? Like they just want to spend a weekend where they crack some packs, built like these janky fun decks that do these weird things. They got to, you know, tap their thing for mana equal to their shirt color and all this other stuff,
Hmm.
and they had a good time and it was fun. For the spikes in us that want to win every tournament and fetch into a Shoglin and Thoughtseize and do some backflips with these 3-mana Teferis and stuff. Like, this isn't really like the type of thing that's for you, but at the same time, I think it's a good way. This is a topic that we've actually talked about in our podcast before, where it's a good way to take a break from the strenuousness of competitive Magic.
Absolutely. Dude, could you just imagine? I'm just envisioning like a world championship coming down to like whether or not one of the judges gave the competitor a high five. Like that'd be so funny. Anyway, and like that's the thing. That is like
Or they
on
wore
an
the
old
wrong shirt because their land
right.
can't tap. They're like, damn it, my land only taps for red. I needed
That
red
would be
on turn
so
1, but I've been looking for my
I can
second blue.
yeah, I can totally imagine like Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth. Uh-oh, I couldn't help but notice Apollo was wearing jeans. Now, if the Hurlu Minotaur comes up in the other player's deck, that's going to be a problem. Yeah, anyway, like yeah,
He's like,
that would
oh,
be
and he
hilarious.
can't use that fatal push because it's not revolted yet. So Denim Walk comes in for quite
What
another
connects?
turn. Yeah. Killing the Liliana of the Veil. All right, so these are all dream scenarios, of course, but you can already see like
Right.
the type of fun that you could have with these cards where like a real quote unquote real regular Magic setting, it's just like so silly, all the shenanigans are kind of happening. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's a good way to take a break from competitive Magic, and it's just what I like about the sets is that it's a good reminder to have fun in the game. I think always remember,
Mhm.
have as much fun as you can. Um, that's really what the game's all about. If you're not having fun, just take a break. And if you want to try to at least have some fun while still playing Magic, play a set like Unfinity, maybe some limited, anything like that. But
Mhm.
um, overall, at the end of the day, these sets aren't necessarily even for someone like me. Like, I'm the type of grab your lands and go type scenario. But I really enjoy them as like eye candy and reading them and thinking about how
Mhm.
cool they are. Like, I used to do that a lot with the I wasn't around the first time that the Unglued and Unhinged came out, but I remember I still, obviously I still started at a time where those cards were still around. So I just remember reading them and being like, wow, these are kind of like wacky, cool effects that you really can't,
Mhm.
like 2.5, 2.5. You're like, yeah, my card's,
Yep.
a 2.5, 2.5. And then, this card gets minus half. And it's
Mhm.
just, it's so, there's so many cool,
Yeah.
weird stuff, you know?
And one of the ones that I love that they introduced, I think it was in Unhinged, but it was when Mana Burn was still a thing. They actually had, I believe it was when Mana Burn was still a thing. There was Mox Lotus, which was literally an artifact. I think cost for like 3 or 4, and you tapped it to add infinite mana.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Like
Yep.
what? Like,
just
anyway,
it's just like, oh, and a big furry monster. Like, I
yeah, it's a
see
big
big
furry
furry
monster that was
monster
2 cards.
all the
And
time.
it showed
Yeah.
well, and one of the cool things about the unsets that makes them so much fun is that they have little like they're made by Magic players who love the game. Like the big furry monster had 2 like earrings, and one of them, if I'm not mistaken, was the Leviathan, which at the time had been one of the biggest creatures to ever be printed in Magic. And I think the other one might have been the Polar Kraken, which is also freaking huge. Like and so it was like those little Easter eggs, and that was just an earring on this huge monster, and it was so big, it took up 2 whole cards, and you only saw its face. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know, it was
it's
just fun.
Leviathan, and yeah, I can't really tell what the other one is. It does look like a demon or something.
It's something, yeah.
I'm not sure. It looks kind
Oh, was
of
it Lord of the
bit.
Pit, maybe?
Oh yeah, you're right. I think maybe it is Lord of the Pit. That would make a little bit more
Oh,
sense.
no, that's Phyrexian Dreadnought. That's what that thing
Is
is.
it?
I think so.
Okay, okay. Which makes sense.
Anyway,
I mean, those are the two biggest cards at the time. Nowadays, it'd just be wearing like Emrakul and
right.
Ulamog or something. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, this is what I like about the onset. I think, and we're gonna talk about our first card here, and we're also gonna talk about one other thing while we bring it up. So, our first card that we're gonna talk about here is gonna be Space Beleren, 2 colorless, white, blue, 3 loyalty. Jace Legendary Planeswalker has an ability, Space Sculptor. So essentially, this card, when it comes into play, essentially, it divides the battlefield into alpha, beta, and gamma sectors. If a creature isn't assigned to a sector, its controller assigns it to one. Opponents assigned first. +1 creatures in each sector can Be blocked this turn only by creatures in the same sector. -1. Put a count on each creature in the sector of your choice. -5. Destroy all creatures in the sector of your choice. So it's interesting because a lot of all of the older unsets, even the most previous one, we didn't really see cards that were added to like Legacy and Vintage. But with this set, specifically the watermark, there's two different watermarks. We have the acorn plus the regular watermark that we see with like the planeswalker symbols or whatever. So this card has the regular watermark, so this card's going to be legal in Legacy. And it's kind of interesting because we're starting to see some of the convoluted, weird mechanics making their way into these already somewhat convoluted formats to a certain degree.
Yeah,
where
and
there's got to be some weird interactions with this, right? Somewhere.
oh, 100%. Well, and that's the thing is, so by introducing the new, like, one, they're doing away with the silver border, which, given how many cards are borderless these days, I guess that kind of makes sense, like, just from a practical standpoint. Although I am kind of disappointed because I personally liked the silver border. I thought it looked cool and it was very easy to like see right away, like, oh, this is not a legal Magic card. But now we have it's the little hollow stamp on the bottom is now, there's the acorn shaped hollow stamp, which designates this is not a tournament legal card. But there are, like you're saying, there are a number of these cards in the set, including Space Beleren, which the name is kind of a fun pun. I'll give them that. But like that is going to be legal in Legacy, Vintage, and Commander. No rules, zero discussion required. It is just good to go. And that's noteworthy because the effect is weird. Like, it has a weird effect. Like, that's like, if they,
it's
like,
different. We've never
set...
seen Battlefield split up. We've never seen like the game state turn. At least in modern Magic, we haven't seen the game state turn in another game state where, like, maybe Shahrazad or whatever it's called, the mirror.
Sure.
The one card where, like, you make
thing.
a mini game inside the game, and then
I
don't even want to think about that. It just makes my head.
I think there's another card called like Raging River. I think that splits attackers and blockers like across into two separate lanes, but it's only for one turn, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I know what you're talking about.
There was one card back in the day that did that, if I'm not mistaken. And I am a regular listener of the Drive to Work podcast, which is Mark Rosewater's podcast. And when he was doing the design discussion on Theros Beyond Death, he talked about a mechanic that they were tooling around with and meant to introduce into Theros. And it got to the point where they were actually designing a token to help support this mechanic called Stygian. And the idea of Stygian was, it was basically the river Styx would enter the battlefield, and you would create like a river running down the middle of the battlefield, and you would have creatures on the underworld or the overworld, the world of the living, and they were on either side. And so the creatures on one side could attack and only be blocked by the creatures that were on that same side, was the idea. It got scrapped in development because it was super complicated and a huge pain in everybody's butt. And it basically just played out like a janky version of Shadow that required you to have a bunch of tokens. And so they got rid of it.
It's okay though,
because it was too confusing and weird.
It's Legacy. Everyone knows how layers work, right? Everyone knows like the super complicated ways of
right, exactly.
MTG. So we can definitely bring in this space planeswalker that essentially makes a river of Styx or whatever you want to call it.
But here's the super confusing thing about Space Beleren. The thing that I find so frustrating is not only does it split the board into two sections, it splits it into three. And on top of that, given all the cards that we've seen so far, which, to be fair, we've only seen a small section of the previews so far. This seems to be the only cards, again, spoiled so far. We'll see if that changes. But as of this recording, this is the only card that cares about the different sectors. So if your opponent has 100 creatures, you play Space Beleren, it is their responsibility to split up their Scoot Swarms however they want into all their different sectors. So you give them a minute to think through all their strategy as you put them into all those different places. And then you can choose to just not do anything related to the sectors and then wipe the board anyway, and everything dies.
And then nobody cares anymore.
And nobody cares. And then you have these three sectors that are on the battlefield for no freaking reason, and they're just there for the rest of the game.
I mean,
Like,
it's cool. You know, it's
it's
like a
it
day
seems
night cycle that you
yes,
don't
it's very
really
similar to
have
the
to
day-night
care
cycle in
about.
that regard. Yeah,
It's
where
like,
if Space Beleren is on the field, you can do some things that interact with it. But it's just like if you have a werewolf on the field that cares about day-night, sure, the day-night cycle matters. If you don't, though, then
I
but you
mean
still need to keep track of it.
that third ability is pretty good. I mean, if you get the 5 loyalty, you can destroy all creatures
True.
in whatever sector your opponent decided that they wanted to potentially put all their creatures in.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It's a
yeah. So what you can ultimately do. So I think that the idea behind Space Beleren is your opponents divvy their creatures up into the sectors, right? And then you get to choose where your creatures go. If your opponent like loads one sector, which is not a good idea, by the way, don't do that. If you're going up against Space Beleren, but if they do, you can then put your creatures in a different sector. Although if they only have say 2 creatures, like they can split them evenly. You put all your creatures in the one sector they didn't choose. Uptick Space Beleren, you can now attack freely with all of them, and your opponent can't block any of them, and you can just wreak havoc on their planeswalkers or deal a ton of face damage. That is oftentimes how this is going to play out, I think. Now, the -1, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature in the sector of your choice. Now, that is agnostic of controller. So, if your opponent has creatures in that sector, they get a counter. If you have creatures in that sector, they get a counter. Be aware of that. Same is true with the -5. Destroy all creatures in the sector of your choice. Now, as the owner of Space Beleren, your opponent gets to assign their sectors first, and then you can adjust your strategy accordingly. So I think there's play to this card that makes it an interesting design situation. I just don't like the cognitive load associated with it. The amount of new data that you need to keep track of, for the course of the game, it seems
I
unnecessary to
couldn't
me.
stop
It
laughing
seems
because like the
excessive.
more I look at it, the more I'm just like I'm thinking like I'm like, man, the kid with like the playmat that's just the sectors is like
Yeah,
really going to be ahead on the curve here
totally.
because and you're going to be happy that your opponent has the playmat because you're going to be like, all
Right?
right, good thing they have this playmat because if Jace resolves, at least I'll know what sectors, because I don't know what you're going to use. You're just going to be at like a I mean,
That's got to be a
you know
thing.
what,
Yeah, the sector playmat. Like, I gotta say, if Ultra Pro and whoever else is not designing a sector playmat right now,
do it.
they're missing the boat on
Yeah,
this.
you're missing. Yep,
Like,
missing the boat.
you know,
Um, I'm gonna say this in regards to some of these cards because we're gonna talk about a few more cards here as well. But this one in particular, I feel like a lot of it is a little bit of an overreaction where everyone's like, "Oh my god, I
mm-hmm.
can't believe this is coming into Magic." But in reality, like the card isn't really doing anything. It's just like a standard Planeswalker.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a 4-mana planeswalker,
it's
and you
fine.
have plenty of ways to play around it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it's
even its
fine. I
ultimate,
don't
that
know.
-5, that is far from game ending.
Yeah, you have like your opponent has to put the cards in the wrong spot, and then
Yeah,
if they're
exactly.
smart, I mean, they already can see that ability. They're just gonna put their
Mm-hmm.
creatures in different sectors. Like the best part about it, I think, is that your opponent gets to choose first, so it's kind of like a Liliana the Veil type situation in real life.
Mm-hmm.
It, I don't know. Yeah, I think we're like maybe some people are like a little bit overreacting on it, where they're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's legacy legal, but and that's actually kind of how I feel about a lot of these cards so far. I'm not really seeing anything that I'm like, oh my god, it's just another Ragavan. I think if anything,
Right.
Ragavan was like
Right.
more messed up
No.
than what's going on these
Yeah.
cards, right?
Oh, for sure. And the power level of Space Beleren, I think, frankly, is actually good. It's pretty mediocre, or frankly, fairly low. Like, I don't think this card is going to have much of an impact on many games, aside from confusing newer players or players who aren't as familiar with
EDH,
this
it's
card.
just
In
commander.
EDH,
I
there are
think
going to
this
be
you're gonna see this
so
card, yeah.
many times. There are going to be so many times when one player attacks with a creature in the gamma sector and the defender blocks with a creature in the alpha sector, and the attacker's like, but wait, they're in separate sectors. It's like, well, Jace didn't uptick this turn, so that's irrelevant. The sectors don't matter. And then somebody's going to play a Wrath of God, and it's like, well, which sector are you targeting? Well, that doesn't target sectors. It kills everything. Like, what?
Yeah,
Like, no,
it's
it
just
doesn't. It just kills
EDH.
it. It's going to be
That's
so
it.
confusing in EDH,
Yeah.
and that's the part I don't like. Yeah, it's the experience of playing the card that I think is going to be unpleasant. It's not going to be broken. Like, we're not going to be seeing this at the Vintage Championship next year. Like I'd be more than happy to eat my words if it does,
This
if
is
something
just
breaks in Legacy or Vintage with this card, but I do not see that happening.
it's just one of those cards that's gonna get Googled a lot. Um,
Yes.
Judges
So what you're saying?
at your local game
Yeah.
store are gonna be called over, and you're gonna have to answer this weird question that you may or may not even know the answer to yet until you see a
All
Space
right.
Beleren.
So here I thought when we were done with this video I was gonna go to sleep, but instead I'm gonna be recording the how does Jace Beleren work or how does Space
Yeah,
Beleren work
pretty
video
much.
and get that up immediately.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I'm telling you, that's where
That
it's
one would
at.
be a hit. Okay,
Oh
I need.
yeah,
Okay, anyway,
oh
sorry.
yeah.
That's for me to
So
think of as we go. Anyway.
we, we've talked a bit about Space Balloon here. We're
Yes.
floating into a black hole. Let's move on to the next card here. The next one's actually a Planeswalker as well, and it's a card that fits into some of the themes that we're going to see in this set, and that's Comet, Stellar Pop, 2 colorless, red, white, legendary Planeswalker Comet, 5 loyalty starting, 0, roll a 6-sided die. All right, I hope you're ready for some text here. If you roll 1 or a 2, hold on, let's if you roll a 1 or a 2, I think that's a +2. Then create 2 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. They gain haste until on a turn. If you roll a 3, it's -1. Then return a card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. 4 or 5, this card deals damage equal to the number of loyalty counters on it to target creature or player, then -2. I believe it's -2. Sorry if I'm...
Pretty tough to read, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to read. 6, +1, you may activate Comet Stellar Pup's loyalty ability 2 more times this turn. Ham, like, I like dice. I like the dice cards. I think the dice stuff's fun.
Yeah.
This one's interesting because it's going into Legacy. So there's a Twitter post by someone. I can't remember who it was right now. I don't have it pulled up. But they posted a picture of this Legacy deck that had, like, all the rerolls for your rolls.
Yeah, so there's, like, Barbarian class, the Pixie, like, the Pixie guide, and, yeah.
Will.
Oh, well, yeah, like Will or Wild, yeah,
Will,
from the
Wild.
Baldur's Gate set, yeah. That allows you to just, yeah, roll with advantage effectively on all your dice rolls. Yeah. So the idea is you would be rolling at a minimum 2 6-sided dice and selecting the higher result. In all likelihood, given how many like you cram into that deck, you could potentially be rolling 3 or 4 dice each time. And you're gonna hit 6 a lot when you're rolling that many dice. Like you just will. And then when you hit the 6, you get to roll it twice more. If you hit 1 6 in any of those, you get to spin it again. Like that could get out of hand really fast.
I think this card's
Because
fun.
one of the modes on here is creating hasty squirrels. So if you hit that enough times, and the other, we have another one that's straight up dealing damage. I mean,
it has relevant abilities. I think the card's really
yeah.
fun. I think that one of the things that potentially holds it back is obviously like its mana cost.
Yeah, totally.
Legacy's a pretty fast format, so I don't know if you're really gonna get your pup down.
Sure.
And I mean, I guess you can Lotus Petal and Simian. You can get it down quick if you got like some Simian Spirit Guides and Lotus Petal, and then you can potentially start to get some of your rolls in.
Sure, but if you're already jumping through those kind of hoops to get an early threat down, I mean, there are better four drops.
Yeah, you want to
I
win the
think.
game. You don't want to
By a
just
lot,
play.
yeah.
You want to play poor Comet over here.
Right. This is the kind of card that like. This is the kind of card I want to build a deck around, and I want to beat you with it so that I can say I did. But if I'm going to a tournament, the last card I'm considering building around is a Planeswalker where I have absolutely no control over which loyalty ability triggers.
That's a really good point too. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Like what happens if you roll a 3 and you don't have any, and your graveyard's empty? Like it just does nothing.
Yeah, feels pretty. And then you also have to have other synergies. So essentially, you have to build your deck around just this card alone. So it's very like It's another 2 cards that I think people just maybe. I'm not sure what the opinion is like at least right now, but I hope no one's really overreacting about these cards because I read both of these cards and I'm like, they're not really like game ending. Like you can storm off and
sure you can have a lot of fun with these cards.
Yeah,
you can have definitely a lot of fun, which I think is exactly where. Yeah, that's exactly where unset cards need to be. Like big, explosive, crazy, fun plays are possible, but like I mean I don't know that much about like I don't play Legacy. I one of these days I'd like to get into it, but I don't currently play Legacy. So I'll be the first to acknowledge, like, yes, right now with this set, a ton of people are going all over the internet and talking about how these cards are going to break Legacy in all these different ways. 95% of those people do not play Legacy. I'm raising my hand. I am one of those people. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't really like. There was a time and place when I played Paper Magic.
Mhm.
Um, it's not right now. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I mean, if I was playing Legacy, I probably wouldn't really care about any of these cards that are coming in right now
And
that we've seen so
that's kind of
far.
my thought.
That we've seen
That's
so
kind of my
far
thought. Is
because we don't know if there's
yeah.
going to be a card out there that we're going to see in the next few days, or by the time the set comes out, that yeah, we're going to be like, yeah, that card is
Oh,
actually
and
100% Legacy playable, like a True Name Nemesis
right.
type
Yes, exactly.
situation,
That I can
essentially.
see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the thing. So I'm more than happy to acknowledge, like, I don't play Legacy. I do not understand the meta of Legacy. I do not understand exactly what's popular, what's not, and what support pieces are out there. Also, in any format where you have the however many thousands upon thousands of cards, like the 500,000 cards or whatever that are in Magic the Gathering, there might be tech that combos with some of these cards in crazy, weird, super obnoxious ways that can dominate a game. I have no idea. But I'll tell you right now, looking at the cards, just on the first blush, I don't see anything. And I'm not seeing anything that really that I think is gonna
They're just fun.
make waves.
Like I
But
read
we'll see.
them and I'm like, all right, I guess it is a little bit cool that you can. These kind of give a little less of the stigma that playing with like your secret lair drop cards do.
Right.
Knowing that these are quote unquote actually legal for some people that are still caring about that, which obviously you shouldn't care because everyone should be allowed to have fun. But um, I don't know. I think that that's really about as far as the cards go. I mean, in Commander, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna see them probably right away for the first month or two. You'll see people popping up with these decks, and then after a couple months, they'll kind of just like fade away, and you'll see them every once in a while. And it's just not. And in Legacy, I mean, yeah, maybe there could be a dice rolling comet deck, and if there is,
Right.
I mean, more power to the space pup. I mean, you know what I like.
Exactly.
That's
Well,
it. More decks,
yeah.
more fun, right? Like, I mean,
100%.
it's not a complicated card. It's just a planeswalker that does random stuff.
Yeah.
It
What I
attacks and
see here
dies with the
is
same types of cards any other
right.
planeswalker does, right? Like,
Oh, 100%. This looks to me like if there is somebody out there running like a weird 3 or 4 color dice rolling commander deck, sure, throw Comet in there. Let's see what happens. And that's cool. Like, I see zero problem with that. But yeah, no, it's like, yeah, it's a neat
yeah,
card. It's not gonna break anything.
yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we're actually going to get into some of the mechanics while essentially talking about a card that we're going to pick for each mechanic here to kind of showcase what it does. So the first ability, we're going to have some links down below in the description as well where you can kind of see all the spoilers. And you can also see the actual article that we're essentially going off of here describing the types of abilities or the types of mechanics in the set, excuse me. So the first one that we have here is going to be stickers. So each Infinity booster is going to have a sticker sheet. Stickers are a new way to essentially bedazzle your cards and kind of just like add a name or essentially add like abilities to the cards. There are 4 kinds of stickers on each sheet: 3 name stickers, 3 art stickers, 2 ability stickers, 2 power toughness stickers. Essentially, name stickers become the first word, or you can add it to an additional word. The art stickers essentially can give art that is like wearing like a hat, maybe like an
Mm-hmm.
axe, anything like that that can give bonuses. We have 2 ability stickers to make them do additional abilities, essentially. Power toughness to kind of just like, obviously make certain boosts or certain stat differences depending on the card. And 2 things that I want to also add to this that are 2 other abilities here is hats and wordplay. So there's some abilities and some cards in the set that if the character or the card essentially has a hat in the artwork, essentially you're going to get some added bonuses. The best example is like Hat Trick. Colorless and a white instant, target blocking or block creature control gets +1/+1 and gains first strike until end of turn. If it has a hat, it gains double strike until end of turn. If you and that creature each have a hat, their creature gains triple strike instead. So you can essentially get your triple strike going if you
That's some
have
unsaid goodness right there.
tons of
I'm into it.
hats. Yeah. And then the other one's a wordplay, which you're going to see this card right now, Wizard of the Blank. So essentially by adding another sticker onto this, you can make Wizard of, you know, bowling pin.
Right.
which is one of the stickers that you saw here just a little moment ago. Stickers. I feel like stickers are kind of pretty basic. Not really much to really go with it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
it says
I
in
mean,
each game you have access to 3 sticker sheets. In constructed
yeah.
games, you can bring at least 10 unique sticker sheets. No repeats, can bring more than 48, as that's all that they made. In sealed decks, before each game, choose up to 3 from among the sticker sheets that you open. And in booster drafts, sticker sheets aren't drafted. After you open an Unfinity booster, remove the sticker sheet before drafting your cards. Before each game, choose up to 3 from among the sticker sheets that you opened. So essentially, you're kind of getting, it's kind of random. It's all randomized to the
Mhm.
point where you can't really get too much abusive with the stickers, I would think.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, stickers, I mean, there come some nuances to how they behave, but really what it feels like to me is Wizards decided that perpetually needed to not just be an alchemy thing. So now we can perpetually make effects or name
Boost the
changes or
stats.
stat boosts, exactly, or keywords. Those can be added perpetually to creatures by literally sticking a sticker on the card. Because I don't know about you, but the one thing I was looking at all of my valuable collector item magic cards and thinking, man, I really wish I could slam a bunch of stickers on these. Um, but here we are.
Just gonna here. Can I see your dual land? Let me just add this sticker to it real quick here.
Yeah, as far as I
Um,
know, I don't believe, at least we haven't seen any yet, cards that allow you to put stickers on your opponent's cards,
oh,
because that would be a dick move.
that's gonna be a
It's
bad
like, hey, nice
feeling.
underground sea. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not
that's
cool.
not it's not
Yeah,
gonna be
no,
good.
that's not okay.
Um,
I don't think they're doing that. But
that would be
yeah.
that'd be pretty hilarious though. Like or like put a sticker on a creature and gain control of it. And
Oh,
you're just like a super jerk. You're just
ha,
like, I'll put a
yeah,
sticker right on the face here. I'll unsleeve your card and grab it here real quick.
exactly.
But what this reminds me of too, on top of like the Alchemy Perpetual, is from the previous unset, there were like those cards that you can kind of like put together, and then they
Mm.
formed like another card. I'm sorry if were they the contraptions? I don't remember if that's what they
They were
were.
yeah, contraptions
Um,
were like a separate deck that you had and you got to like assemble contraptions and put them onto like a sprocket. It was an awkward little
yeah,
sub
you can create
game that
like
you could
these weird
do.
like Frankenstein
Hmm.
type creatures, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like what this reminds me of,
Oh,
but like carnival
I,
based.
I think you're thinking of host and augment.
Yes, that's what it is. Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah.
That's actually
So yeah,
exactly
you could
what it
make
is.
the
Yeah.
half cat. That was a thing that you could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I think that this is kind of like what it reminds me of, except for like obviously you just have stickers, so you're
Hmm.
just making other cards turn into these other cards, and you're hoping that the stickers that you get or the cards that work with stickers have high payoffs. I'm not really
Right.
like too sure what really much it adds outside of that's. I feel like it's like a really complicated way of saying you put a sticker on a card and it does this thing.
Yeah. I mean, stickers function very similarly to counters. The only major difference is if the card goes into a public zone, such as the graveyard, or exile, the sticker stays on it.
Yeah, it's not
Unlike
going
a
away.
counter that
Yeah, it's
falls
not going
off.
away.
Yeah.
That's the
If it
alchemy
goes back
part
into your
that
hand
you're talking
or gets
about.
shuffled back in, yeah, if it goes back into your hand or gets shuffled into your library, then it goes away.
Hmm.
But in public zones, it sticks around. So
Which is
if
pretty
it's
interesting.
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm intrigued by the idea. In casual games, you know, the other thing that's noteworthy is in order to use most stickers, there's some cards that when they like the Wizard of Blank, when it enters the battlefield, you just put a name sticker on it. You can just so whatever name words you have, you just take one of those and just slap it on there. So you could have Wizards of the Bowling Pin, Wizards of the Cannonball, Wizard of the Squirrel, whatever. You just name it basically. In other cases, stickers actually cost tickets, which are a new form of resource, a new almost currency, if you
It's
will.
like
Uh,
energy.
Similar to energy. Yes, it functions very similar to energy. That once you have a ticket, you just have it. Your opponent can't interact with it in any way, and you can then spend it on stickers. Um, yeah, if a card allows you to play a sticker, and usually the stickers that cost um tickets are the stat boost sticker or the keyword stickers. So they're the ones that impact combat. They're the ones that make your creature evasive, or that kind of thing. So like as you can imagine, like a double strike sticker might be really expensive because it's a very powerful ability. Whereas a stat sticker that just says 2/2 would be pretty cheap because that's not a good stat line. So
You can't sticker your opponent's cards no matter what, it says here. So you can't,
oh, that's
even
official.
if you
Okay,
gain control of their card, you can't sticker it.
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so that one definitely
Similar to how mutate
stops
works,
bad
actually.
stuff from happening.
Yeah.
And like you being able to equip your opponent's creatures if you gain control of them and things like that.
Yeah, you can equip them,
Um,
you can enchant them all day, but you can't yeah, you
you
can't sticker
can't
them.
do it when
I'm cool
they're
with
on
that.
the other side. Yeah, you can't do it when
Yeah.
they're on the other side.
Yeah, and I know you can't mutate cards onto creatures your opponent owns, even if you control them either. Because as you can imagine, the logistical nightmare of that would be
Ugh,
something else completely.
that's
Anyway,
painful.
right?
That's painful.
Yeah.
So our next, we're already talking about a convoluted mess. That's
That's a
that's
whole
a whole
other thing. And
nother.
that's
Yeah,
all like that's not even a new mechanic. That's been blackboard for a
that
long time. Anyway.
that's just magic.
That's just magic, baby. Yeah, it gets
Uh,
weird enough. We don't need to make it weirder. Yeah. Anyway,
exactly.
but here we are. All right.
So essentially, a really big last ability here that we save for the end. Got to save the best for
Woo.
last. Our attractions. So Unfinity, we're in this carnival, fairgrounds type situation in space, and we've got some attractions that are gonna show up here. They're kind of like sagas. Ham called them sagas, so I'm gonna call them sagas
Kinda.
that you roll for.
Yeah, they're
So
saga-esque.
essentially, you have cards that you open an attraction, so you get to choose one of your attractions or whatever. And then every pre-combat main phase, which is after you draw, same thing as a saga,
Mm-hmm.
you get to roll a dice, and if you roll a dice that, if it lands on the same number that is listed on the right-hand side that you're seeing there, it gives you a visit, and then essentially you get the effect that's from that visit. The main card that we actually have here for you is Haunted House. So every pre-combat main phase, I believe it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would roll a dice. If you roll a 3, you will get to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and then exile it at the beginning of your next end step. So 3 or 6. So it's a card. It's like a combination of like a bunch of different abilities in a way, where it's sagas, dungeons. It's kind of like a culmination of like where Wizards design space has come to, where
Mm-hmm.
they can kind of like affect the outside of the game but still affecting the inside of the game at the same time. And
Yeah.
I think Haunted House is like a great that card specifically is like a great example of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll notice as you look at the Haunted House card, it does not have a casting cost because, like you were saying, another card has to open the attraction. And in order to open the attraction, you actually, if I'm not mistaken, you draw it right out of a separate deck. That's right. We are playing Yu-Gi-Oh, everybody. We now have an extra deck. That is a thing. Um, well, to be fair though, Contraptions already did that back in like Unhinged. So all right, we're doing it again.
Yeah,
We now have
we're back at it
an
again.
attraction deck that in constructed, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's a minimum of 10 cards. In limited, it's a minimum of 3 that are on your separate attraction deck that you may or may not have. You don't have to have one. Um, but obviously, if you have a card that opens an attraction and you don't have an attraction deck, well, so be it. You just don't get it.
Yeah.
So obviously, you're going to want that if you have cards that care. And so, yeah, in this case, if you have a card that says open an attraction and you draw a haunted house, then you play haunted house down. It does, while it's on the battlefield, count as an artifact. If your opponent is capable of destroying an artifact or exiling an artifact, they can get rid of it. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you don't hit the roll, you get no effect. It just is an artifact. That said, it counts towards your artifact count.
Yeah,
So if
it'll
you have
count
things
towards
like affinity
affinity.
and,
Yeah.
that's something, right? So be aware of that. But otherwise, it's just an artifact. And yeah, during your pre-combat main phase, right after your draw step, just like a saga, you roll for it and see what you get. Again, this is a situation where if you have multiple cards that can help you kind of stack die rolls, that can help with these as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Also, on the cards, on the attraction cards, you will notice that they have those different numbers lit up on the side. The different attractions have different numbers of those listed. So we notice with Haunted House, there are only 2. that are lit up. In the version that we got to see, it was 3 and 6. If I'm not mistaken, actually, Wizards is even printing different versions of these. So like the haunted house that I draw might be 3 and 6. If you have a haunted house in your deck, it might be 2 and 6 or 5 and 6. I could be mistaken on that too, but I've seen multiple pictures of attractions that have different numbers lit up. So I believe that's a thing now too. But even so, I believe the number of them. So with haunted house, there will be 2 successes on a d6, and one of them will always be 6.
Mm-hmm.
6 is lit up on every single attraction. No matter what else, 6 is going to be a hit. And 1 is a failure on all of them, no matter what. So that's a little bit piece of consistency for, D&D fans. You have your crit fail, your crit, critical hit. So that's nice. I'll
Yeah,
take it.
it's interesting. I mean, it adds a lot more depth to the game, and once again, it seems like it's a complicated thing, but it's not really even that insane. It's
Yeah.
just an effect you're getting every turn, and then that's kind of like about as far as it goes. Some of these are going to be obviously legal and legacy, like you see the haunted house. Does
Right.
have this timestamp on it, but I mean
Yep.
it's cool. Just adding some more dimension to the game, and yeah, at least for me so far, like with the set specifically, like it's more about like limited type
Hmm.
applications. One of the cards,
Yeah.
real quick, that we wanted to touch on was Goblin Blasternauts. This is like an example of a card that opens an attraction when it comes in. It's 3 colors, 2 red for a 5/4 Goblin Employee. That is like my favorite creature type right now.
I like
Whenever you
it too.
roll a
Yeah.
6,
Absolutely.
oh yeah, it's the artwork for this is pretty
So
amazing.
good.
You may copy the spell ability or attraction visit that calls you to roll that dice. You may choose new targets for the copies. So, not only does it open an attraction, if you get to visit it, you can maybe even get to visit it twice, get a couple of effects. Really cool uncommon. Sometimes we actually see cards like this at rare. Obviously, the stats
Hmm.
aren't like modern day Magic stats, but this is an unset either way. But yeah, that type of card can already give you an idea of what you're looking for here. Is either creature, or potentially there's other permanents that when they come down, they let you open an attraction, and then you can go on from there, and kind of just potentially get some incremental value. Every single turn is like what you're really trying to go for, because these are. It's weird to think that there's almost, even in an unset, we have these mechanics that we see in constructed sets. This is
Hmm.
like, to me, this is just dungeons. Like they're just adding dungeons to the unset. It helps add for limited, and now they're adding some that are going to be legal and legacy and vintage. So I mean, it definitely, like I said, adds a new layer, and it's going to be pretty interesting to kind of see where it goes. Free stuff is free stuff, right? Like
Exactly.
at the end of the
Well,
day, free stuff's free stuff. Like,
free stuff, free stuff. Well, and I know I've run decks that are made up of just an absurd number of sagas, and that's a style of deck that I've run. I built a 5-color saga deck actually before this last rotation, just to see if I could do it. It was one of those like, let's just give it a shot and see what happens. And I found, to be honest, if I got to survive until like turn 4 or 5, that deck slapped. Like it was shockingly effective because it was accruing a ton of value turn over turn. When you have 4 or 5 sagas trigger a turn, it really doesn't matter what effects you're getting. Those are beneficial effects that are helping you move the game towards the victory. And I can totally imagine an attraction deck where the whole goal is to draw all 10 of your attractions onto the battlefield, visit all of them every turn, potentially multiple times if you have ways to double up those kind of effects, and just go completely crazy on those. I can totally see that being a viable strategy. Maybe a janky commander strategy, but a janky strategy, but like a fun one nonetheless. You know, so I can absolutely imagine that. Now it is worth noting, Goblin Blasternauts is acorn stamped, so it is not legacy legal. There will be other attraction enablers that are, which I also find kind of funny because what was it about this card that made it not legacy legal? Because
I mean, it seems fine
we've
to me.
identified, yeah, we've identified some attractions are going to be legacy legal. So it's not the fact that attractions are on it. And whenever you roll a 6, you may copy the spell or ability that
It's
causes
a
it to
five
roll.
mana
Like we've
card.
seen ability doubling is no big deal. We see that all the time. Like
Yeah, we
so,
talked about the planeswalkers, like not seeing any legacy play, and those cards are way more powerful.
right? That
So
said,
it's interesting.
Goblin Blasternauts with Comet.
Ooh, there you
Because if you
go.
hit the 6 on Comet, you get to then activate Comet, what, 4 more times?
Yeah, and then oh, that sounds
That's pretty sick.
awesome. Yeah, that's sweet. Oh yeah, I
So,
like where we're going here. These Blasternauts
there's
are
something here. There's
the
something
best
here. We can have some fun.
employee of the month
Oh, 100%.
for Goblin Blasternauts. Um, so our next mechanic here that we
Yes.
actually have is our last one. And that's actually a pretty simple one. People outside the game, we've seen this before. We got Rockstar, 4 colorless and a red 4/5 reach, elemental performer. That just sounds like a regular creature type. Whenever this card enters the
Right.
battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, reveal top 5 cards of your library. Ask a person outside the game to choose which one of them is most like a rock band. Put that card in your hand. The rest on the bottom at random. Yeah, we've seen these cards before where it's like, hey, when this card comes in, pick somebody in the room, and then that somebody in the room makes a decision. So that's kind of like as far as this ability specifically goes, right?
Right.
Not really
Yeah,
like
the idea
much
of doing
else to
something
it.
with a player outside the game, I don't see like it's fun. It's janky. It's a mechanic. This particular one I think is kind of funny because we've all had those moments where someone will say something or we see something. This happens a lot with Magic card names. We're like, man, I think that'd be a great album name or a great rock band name. And so I like the fact that they're doing something with that. I think it's kind of fun. Like if I just look down at my desk right now, I see a card from Dominaria United. It's called Extinguish the Light. Like if that's not a metal album, I don't know what is. You know.
Right.
So like, all right, that's
Uh,
kind of fun. Like I can appreciate the flavor of this. Like that's unset goodness. I'm cool with it. I also love the fact that this just happens to have reach, like for no reason. Like this is the obligatory red 5-drop with sneaky reach. Like why? When did that become a thing? But here we are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here we are with
But no, it's fun. This is a fun card. Manipulating
Unfinity.
players outside of the game impacting your game is something that we're seeing more and more
It's been in
in
every
unset
unset.
specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so there,
it's
it
fun.
makes sense to see it in
I like
this
it.
one because it's once again it's like that Metazoo type feeling. You're just doing other
Hmm.
elements of the game that you wouldn't normally
Yeah,
do, and making it about as RNG as it gets, where you're literally
yeah,
just picking someone randomly in the room.
right. And
Um,
this is the kind of thing that you will never see in like this type of card is 100% out of bounds as far as like legacy legality is concerned. That like this is gonna be acorn stamped all day.
can you imagine
The
just
the
like
mo- the moment
randomly
we
picking
have
someone?
yeah exactly the moment we have a card that like yeah requires you to yeah get someone's opinion about a rock band or like give you a high five from outside the game in legacy magic. I think a lot of people will accept that the game has jumped the shark, and fortunately we're not there.
to to that degree.
Yeah, like
You're
that'd be
like,
a
hey,
bit much.
judge, pick a card. I just want you to pick a card for me. Please try to be nice to me. Please pick the card that I need in this moment. Just ignore the board state here.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just yeah, exactly.
I like
Just pick
to
one of these
because
two.
like it could also depend on the person you pick what their definition of like a rock band would be.
Right.
It's kind of funny. Like it's gonna lead to some interesting gameplay, and just like we talked about in the beginning of the video, and we've talked about throughout. That's really what this set's about. It's about having fun, enjoying the cards for what they are, and just not really thinking too much about it. Even just like we've been even talking about the whole time too, is like even the ones that are gonna be like legacy and stuff legal. I mean,
Hmm.
just some more magic cards. It's not as it's no different than like the complexity that we've seen with some other cards that have been printed before.
Right.
Right? Like there's other cards in the game that are way more complicated in terms of trying to think of how they work.
True. Very true. Well, and I think this actually, um, to kind of tie it all together. At the end of the day, competitive like traditional black bordered magic, whether you're playing, Commander, Legacy, Vintage, Modern, whatever your format of choice is. When you think, well, to be honest, I'm thinking more 60 card competitive. So let's not even worry about Commander. It's kind of its own beast. When you're playing a 60 card competitive format, the experience and the fun come from the nuanced gameplay and the results. Like you get satisfaction from winning the game, and that is what you're trying to do. With these unsets, the satisfaction and the enjoyment that you get is by creating weird moments. and having fun with your friends or strangers around you at pre-release events or that kind of thing. So it's all about sharing a moment with people. You know, am I going to be super pissed that I lost the game because you don't think that, you know, you disagree with my definition of what a rock band name sounds like? Not really. Like, cuz we all acknowledge like my gameplay did not reflect the outcome of that game. Or, you know, my gameplay was not the factor that impacted the game in that moment. It was it was straight up an outside force. But going into it, knowing outside forces will have effects. Like we've seen cards in the set that care about what color your shirt is. Like that's a thing. Like what? Like how is any of this really relevant? Well, it's not. It's fun. It's just goofy and fun. The whole point is to
Yeah, just have
experience
fun
it
with it. Yeah,
and just
don't.
have fun.
Yeah, it's
And don't worry about wins or losses. That's not the point.
yep,
Don't
100%.
focus on making sure your gameplay is as tight and you're making all the perfect decisions. Like, nah, play the space dog and roll some dice and see what happens. Like,
I think
have
that's
some
like the
fun.
best thing I've heard in a long time. Roll play this space dog and roll some dice. Never thought I would hear any of those words together in
That's
reference to Magic the Gathering,
that
but
is yep.
here we are.
Here we are.
Here we
That is
are.
the set that we are previewing today,
That
folks. Yeah, that is
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. Just stop caring about winning. Just
yeah.
if you got
There
some money you want to spend to have some fun, it's not even like if you want to open some cards that are worth money. This one, like,
mhm.
if you just want to go enjoy this weird draft experience that it's probably going to be, this weird sealed limited environment, whatever, like, go do it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an experience because I think that everyone kind of takes these sets for granted
Mhm.
because we don't really know how many of them are going to come around. We don't know when the next one's going to come around, and the fact that you're able to play literally unhinged Magic is a really
Right.
cool thing. So go out and enjoy it, even if you play one draft. I mean, at least you went out and you tried it out and just had some fun with it. I think this is all something I think everyone should probably like experience at least once because
Mhm.
it really makes you like let loose and uh pardon my French, but be a lot less of a tight ass about it because we're just here to have fun. That's really what it's all about. I think that that's
Mhm.
the number one thing. And yeah, I mean, the set looks really cool. Like visually, this set looks amazing.
Yeah.
Um, the Texas lands, uh, those look just godly.
Oh yeah.
The
Those
shock
those things are
lands, they're the
oh.
same thing. You grab your lands and run.
Oh my
Type
yeah, exactly.
scenario.
Like the full art lands for these unsets have a history of being absolutely breathtaking, and these ones not only deliver on that, but also just evoke the set. Like, you know, we have spaceships and we have full planets and we're seeing these
Space
weird
Chase.
extraterrestrial landscapes, right? But at the same time, they're not distracting. Like, if you look at the art for Godless Shrine, for example, it's the white black shockland. And I'm gonna go ahead and invoke that so nobody Hollywood has to put it up on the screen for you folks. Haha. If I can just yeah, but
Oh,
that's
I
one of
mean,
the things
I
when
love
I
this
find
Gala Shrine. This Gala Shrine
so
is
good.
lit.
It's a beautiful piece of art, and yeah, there's a spaceship in it, but at the same time, like it's not distracting. You know, I'm not like when I'm playing a game, I'm not like upset that my opponent has a spaceship in there. I mean, let's be honest, I'm probably playing with Godzilla anyway, so at this point, who
Yeah, like
cares?
if you're getting
But
salty over these, you got a problem. I mean, these are just beautiful. Like
right,
these are just beautiful
they're
pieces of
fantastic.
art. Like I want these. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't even
100%.
play paper magic. Like I would love to have
Yeah.
these
No,
stomping
we're gonna
grounds
get.
that just looks
Oh,
amazing. Like
so good.
the
I like.
Holofountain
Oh, that
just
stomping
looks
grounds with like the meteor shower.
unbelievable.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, with these lands, this is one of those things. If you are interested in Unfinity, definitely go to the pre-release. Like, oh, you know, if you want to do the pre-release or a sealed event with your friends or however you want to do it, crack the packs, do your thing, have your fun, and you can hand all of the cards to your little cousin who's gonna go have some fun with their friends, but hang on to these lands.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let these go anywhere. If you open any of them, because they are going to skyrocket in price. Because one, obviously, a basic land is the most playable card in all of Magic because they go in all the decks to some degree. Well, not all of them, I know, but many, many, many decks. But the shock lands have also proven themselves time and time again in any format where they're legal to be just phenomenal duels. So we know the shocks are great.
And they're legal in
They're some
Pioneer and
Yeah, there you
Explorer.
go.
They're still around.
Exactly.
I mean, you're gonna be
They're
playing with
still around.
these probably for most
So
of your Magic life.
yeah, and so we're gonna get to a point where like a normal copy of like Steam Vents or Godless Shrine from whatever Ravnica said, we're probably gonna get to a point where they're $20 maybe, or like okay, like or 25 wherever they're at. But the Unfinity version will probably be at least twice that because this artwork is gorgeous. The cards are incredibly playable, and if you have one, you're gonna want four.
Just remember,
So
like, even though these sets are printed like a standard set, these sets, at least from what I would believe, would be that these sets aren't opened as much.
mhm,
So even though the shock lands and some of those Texas lands up front are probably going to be really cheap for you to scoop up, I just say scoop up as many as you can because,
mhm.
in like 6 months to a year, you're going to see those cards actually go up in price because of the alternate text because this set wasn't opened as much.
Very
It
true.
wasn't quote unquote as popular. And we're already, I mean, Mehook Massacre is the best example. Mehook Massacre is a card that is only really expensive because the set isn't being opened as much, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got Midnight Hunt and all that happened during the time, even a little still around the pandemic. So some of those cards are like really expensive, and I think that these lands kind of fall into that same category where up front, like I said, they're going to be cheap, and then in about like a couple months, they're going to dry up a bit, even though the set's going to get opened. And then 6 months to a year, you'll probably see these cards kind of be worth almost as much as maybe what they're worth now for the
Mhm.
shock lands because people are going to be. If you play competitive Magic, you don't need one; you need four. And
Exactly.
even buying just one for an EDH deck already brings up demand for the cards. So
Oh, 100%. Well, and to your point, actually, I did just look this up out of curiosity. The first, like, quote unquote, full art lands that were ever printed, if I'm not mistaken, were in Unglued. Like the very first
yeah, they were
unset
the
that came
unglued. Yep.
out back in '99 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just looked it up on TCG Player. An unglued island that is moderately played is going for around $5.
Yeah,
And I think that speaks to your point of these sets are not that popular. They're not, and that's just a basic island, like one
and
of them,
those are the most unpopular ones too. Is the
right?
unglued. A lot of people those are like real specific, right? Like some people gotta really like those, but that's still like a $5. And then if we go into like unhinged, like the unhinged ones, I think were reprinted in double masters, but even the foils of those cards are like really expensive.
Yeah, yeah, and sure enough, yeah, these were like the Unhinged Island, which is a beautiful John Avon piece. Yeah, it's going for about $4.
Yeah,
And that was much newer than Unglued. So presumably, yeah, exactly. The supply was significantly higher. They're still very expensive little piece of cardboard, and they're islands. Like if you've been playing Magic for any length of time and you have a collection, you probably have hundreds of islands that you have no idea what to do with. I know I do,
yeah,
and
definitely.
the idea of spending $4 on one island, like oh my goodness, and I have no doubt that and that's just the basic lands. And the basic lands in this set are gorgeous. I have no doubt they're going to meet
Yeah, the
that.
basics, the
They're
shock
going to be up
lands,
there. They're absolutely going to be up there.
they
But then
both
the
look just
shocks.
amazing.
The shock lands are like you could take the jankiest artwork, although frankly all of them have been really good throughout Magic's history, so I'm not throwing shade at any particular artist, but you can take the least desired artwork for any one of these shock lands and it is going to be an expensive card just because of what it does. So you put that into a beautiful full art treatment, that's going to be money very quickly.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much at least like what the spoilers that we know about Infinity. But the main purpose that we wanted to do with this video was kind of give you a general idea of like what the set mechanics are, what to look forward to for your drafts, for your pre-releases, and kind of just like an idea of what's happening in Magic because I think it's pretty important to kind of see some of these crazy cards, because who knows, maybe one day, just like you said, just, Mark Rosewater, whoever is designing as well, maybe one
Mhm.
day they want to put some of these abilities into regular non-un magic, and you'll actually get to see those abilities on the battlefield. So overall, just a really, really fun set. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what those lands look like in real life.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I do want to thank everybody for making it this far into the video. If you haven't already, definitely hit that subscribe button, bell notification, like the video, and leave a comment down below. Would be greatly appreciated. You can find information for HamHocks42's and mine content down below in the description as well. We do host 3 tournaments a month. All are free to play with cash prizes, so definitely get in on that. You can find links as well down below. And I hope that you stay cheesy.